Alright everyone, so we are moving right along. This is going to be the example of game I pulled up for you regarding the Flashback deck. I am going blue-green. I did want to kind of play around with black-green. I felt this was a little, I don't know, cliche, is that the word? But it really does have a lot of the power needed. So this was the opening hand right here. Almost near perfect. I just kind of wished that this harbor was an island so I could get that turn 1 careful study out and get this Roar of the Worm right into the graveyard. But it's going to be pretty good. We'll still at least have the turn 2 play getting the Scab off. So, once that harbor untaps, obviously going to start off with that because it does come into play tapped. I guess you could start with the island. The harbor would come into play untapped. Following that, it doesn't matter. I just played the harbor so I could F8 through it and move on with the life. So we do get our second island. I do put that one into play because I don't know, anger that I didn't have it in the first place. It really doesn't matter which island or forest you put down. Scab is going to go into play, and the 2 cards we hit are near perfect. We do get another Scab, which is, I think it's a nice thing to see go to the graveyard because of the fact that hitting 2 of them is okay, but we would rather get other plays in instead of playing 2 of those in a row. But even better, it does hit a Roar of the Worms. So now we're going to have to, on my next turn, I can use Careful Study to get that other one in the graveyard, and we'll be able to definitely get a 6/6 Worm token into play on turn 4. So my opponent's first play, he comes out with a Plague Stinger, clearly running some kind of Infect, I think, at this point in the game, which kind of sucks because you have to outpace them. Anyone familiar with me, I play a lot of Pauper and talk mostly about Pauper, so the Infect deck is something that's really dominant and can pull off those fast wins regardless of life, so you really have to kind of try and outpace it, which I think this deck has the ability to do because of the 6/6 on turn 4 and stuff like that. So get another Harbor, which is fantastic because this puts at a point in time, and you see this would not be possible had I played a forest last turn. I have the ability, I can play the Careful Study to get that Roar of the Worms into the graveyard, and I still have the mana available for the counterspell. You see there, I drew 2 islands, really kind of mana flooded, didn't need this much land, so I'm definitely going to get rid of one of those. I'd rather get rid of 2 of those, but more important to get rid of that worm so that you can have the ability to play yet another 6/6 on turn 4. Going to attack through in hopes that maybe he's willing to trade the Stinger for the Scab, which he does not. You can always hope, but never gonna really sell it. He's really not caring about 2 life, especially I guess when he has Glimmer Post, which comes down and cancels that out. Expedition Map, is not something you want to stop it because of the post land ramp. But at the same time, I really didn't want to waste the counter spell. I feel it's better to counterspell, whatever big thing he's planning on playing afterwards. He does get another Cloud Post, which is going to come down, and I get my first Infect, my first Poison counter. So drawn to Moment's Peace, definitely not what I want to see, but I am going to be able to get my first 6/6 Worm token, and attack through. We're going to bring this down here because we do have options in the deck. When you're playing this, obviously you're going to have your graveyard open so that you know where your flashback cards are. But because we do have the option to get a couple cards back from exile, I like to leave exiled open. You can feel free to minimize or change size as you so desire. But we definitely want to be able to do this. On next turn, we will be able to put out a second on the worm if the game state says it's safe. Otherwise, we will have the ability to leave man open for counterspell and Moment's Peace. I don't know. It's really weird because he's only played 1 creature at this point, so you're in really kind of an odd thing. He kind of tilts his hand a bit more now when he plays that which was taken, which puts divinity counters on permanents and makes them indestructible. So you're gonna see just kind of what his I guess it's his combo is in a minute. Really not, I guess, intentionally trying to get me on with the poison counters. But he does tap through, which is going to allow me to swing for 8, bringing him down to 10. Feel that I'm in a pretty good position at this point in time. This is because I didn't quite realize what was going on just yet. And you see, I did decide to pass here. I could have flashbacked the second Roar, and perhaps I should have. in retrospect, but I did leave the mana available to counterspell. I was a little worried with this much mana. He just put this Cloud Post into play last turn, so it was not, open and available for tapping. So I was a little concerned about what he was going to be able to play now that he did have that second Cloud Post untapped. So he uses his artifact, puts an indestructible counter on the Stinger, and now what he has is this 1/1 that can block anything, and every time it blocks, it's going to make that creature smaller. So every turn he's going to be able to block my 6/6 worm token, and every turn it's going to get smaller. Blocks it once, it goes down to 5/5, to 4/4, to 3/3 every turn. Just getting that smaller. So now he plays the Lotus. I start to counterspell this, you see here, and then decided, well, again, this is the same thing like counterspelling the map. I didn't counterspell the map because I wanted to instead counterspell what he was going to play with that mana. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Why slow the mana? He's clearly got a lot of mana. 3 more is not going to put him over the top to win. More importantly, it's going to be what he needs that mana for that I should save the kill. He decides not to attack through. Like I said, he's going to be able to block the worm every turn and make it smaller. And now I have the point where I can play 6 land, the 6th land, and flashback that worm, get my second worm token into play, and still have the mana available to counterspell whatever it is he's been building up to. When you're running this much mana, and your only play so far has been a Plague Stinger, clearly, there's something bigger in the works. You see here, the Stinger blocked my worm. It is 5/5, but, if this is the only creature he plays, eventually this Scab is going to get through and kill it off. Kill him off. The worm is down as well, so that's going to slide through, and he's going to just, be able to block one of them. So here we kind of get a view of what he was building to. He plays the Platinum Empyrean, which would be game over if he got it into play, because I do not have an answer for it without forcing him to block, and there's no reason for him to block with it. His life total can't change, so all of a sudden, I can attack every turn, he doesn't have to block, and nothing's going to happen. And I have no answer to it once it's on the field. So this is a point where I was thankful that I was holding onto this counterspell for whatever he was building up to, because if I did not have it, this would be game over. So you can call it luck, but definitely the nuts there. I had the I had the answer that I needed, the only answer I could have had. So he does play a second creature in the Rotwolf, but he is tapped out, so he can't make this one indestructible. Thankfully, he is going to be able to still give the minus counters to my creatures, but at the same time, it's going to kill the Rotwolf and being like the Stinger, which is still alive. Draw into a counterspell, which is great if he decides to try and get another Empyrean out. And now that I know he's got that kind of thing going on, I'm definitely going to leave the mana open on every time possible to use that counterspell. You see with the Wolf, the new Worm token is now also a 4/4. The Plague Stinger brought this one from 5 to 4. But he is now back to the point in time where he only has one blocker and no answers. He's going to continue to make the worm smaller. Glimmer Post comes down, which is driving me nuts. Brings him up to 9. He does tutor there, and with only 2 cards in his hand, I'm assuming this is what he tutored for, is this indestructible 3/3. And again, you really don't have any options for this deck once something hits the field as far as getting rid of it. The idea is, kind of along the green lines, you're just going to try and attack with creatures and force them to block, and that's your answer to creatures, is playing big creatures that your opponent has to sacrifice his creatures to block. But because he's got all these indestructible creatures going on, I can't do that, so what I need to do is counterspell this before it gets to the field. And like I said, because he only had 2 cards in hand, I'm assuming that's what he tutored for. Maybe that was just a bluff, and whatever he tutored for is still in his hand, and that would bring me into a bit of an issue. But draw into Armored Scab, which is going to hopefully hit another worm, and then I can, get that worm, and then I can play it right off this 4 mana. But you see here, it does not. It's 3 more lands, and the counterspell definitely was feeling a bit land flooded on this one. You see I have 8 lands in play between my hand and the board, and I have 4 off that and an island there. That's a significant... Wait, am I going to do math? 8 and 4, 12, 1, 13. So that's more than half of my land total within, 22 cards. I've hit 14 lands, so definitely definitely flooded. Um, that's kind of the good part about these careful studies and all. It allows you to kind of draw through and siphon out some of that extra land that you come across. Um, Attacking there with everything, you get to that. Oh, whoa, let's stop this for a second. Okay, it's gonna play through. You attack with everything, and every turn because you want to try and get through. He is going to be able to make one smaller, but because at that point in time he was only able to block one worm, um, it was still going to give him some damage. Let's see if I can sum up the past turn or two that just fast forwarded. So my opponent plays the Moyojin, uses the Moyojin's ability, removes the divinity counter to put the Carniflex demon in play, which I don't know. He doesn't really use. He's got 2 counters on it. He could have used it to do something, maybe not. Earlier, we do pass a couple turns back and forth here, as you saw. He plays these and doesn't attack or anything with Summoning Sickness, so on my turn I get nothing. I pass the turn. He still doesn't attack with on the first turn that they're available to do so. So that brings us to a point where I got the ability to play the Parallel Evolution that I drew. I even have the mana to flash it back on the next turn. But he, on this turn here, does not have a creature. So he can block my 3 biggest creatures, and I'm still to get through for 3 damage. So that's pretty much game over. He has 1 card in hand. I drew into a counterspell, so if he had some kind of damage prevention or anything like that, I would be able to stop it. But he cannot block. Even if he used the Moyojin and put a 4th creature into play, I still have enough to get through. Just the scabs alone are going to finish him off, so that pulls off the win. So hopefully you got a decent idea here of what a nice quick start this deck can have. We had the scab into the Roar of the Worms, the careful study. It does kind of show the weakness of this deck is the occasional land flood, which there's not much you can do when you're throwing cards to the grave and bringing them back. It's going to happen every now and then. It happens with just about every deck. But use the careful studies and stuff like that to be smart and throw stuff to the grave, and keep that stuff up. Definitely your bombs are going to be Parallel Evolution. You want to make sure you're aggressive with attacking. And I think that's all I can say about this deck. So hopefully, if you haven't already, check out the deck and check out the rest of the decks in the series.